Okay, so this is going to be chapter 11 from Exodus from Egypt, titled One of the Greatest Christian Businessmen. Exodus from Egypt, chapter 11, One of the Greatest Christian Businessmen, chapter 11. There are many stories of men who have honored the Lord in their business practices and came up trumps. R.G. Letourneau, an earth-moving innovator, was a case in point. R.G. Letourneau is perhaps the most inspiring Christian inventor, businessman, and entrepreneur the world has ever seen. A sixth grade dropout, Robert Gilmore, R.G. Letourneau, went on to become the leading earth-moving machinery manufacturer of his day, with plants on 4 continents, more than 300 patents to his name, and major contributions to road construction and heavy equipment that forever changed the world. Most importantly, his contribution to the advancement of the gospel ranks him amongst the greatest of Christian businessmen of all time. Famous for living on 10% of his income and giving 90% to the spread of the gospel. Letourneau exemplified what a Christian businessman should be. Letourneau slowly expanded to larger and larger land leveling contracts. He continually underbid his competitors to win jobs and would scramble to invent machines to speed up the work and keep him from going broke. Although there were many technological advances in other areas of commerce in the early 1900s, in the world of earth moving at the time, it was still in the Stone Age. Roads were built by employing large numbers of men with shovels and utilizing mules to drag small plows. R.G. Letourneau was among the first road construction contractors to introduce machinery for moving earth. The year was 1919, and as a Christian, he felt the tug to be doing more for God. He went to his pastor, Reverend Duvall, for advice. R.G. thought that anyone who was wholly committed to Christ had to become a pastor or a missionary to truly fulfill the Great Commission. After deep prayer with his pastor, R.G. Letourneau was shocked to hear Reverend Duvall say the words that guided him for the rest of his life. God needs businessmen too. This was a revelation to R.G. He immediately began to consider his business to be in partnership with God. Still, R.G. Letourneau was puzzled as to why God would choose him to be his businessman, especially when at the age of 40, in the year 1927, a big construction job went bad and put him $100,000 in debt. But as R.G. remarked later, after seeing what God could do to restore a business and a life, he uses the weak to confound the mighty. The following story highlights a miracle that God performed while R.G. faithfully served God and not man. The surety company that had backed R.G. Letourneau on the construction job that posted the $100,000 loss was going to see to it that R.G. paid them back every penny owed. So on Letourneau's next job, the surety company demanded R.G. work on Sundays, or else they would foreclose on his business, his house, everything. Since R.G.'s business partner was God, he gave the problem to God to solve. The owner of the surety company, Mr. Hall, boarded a train to officially shut Lecternos down. But upon arrival to the job site the next day, something miraculous occurred. The surety man had a change of heart and allowed RG to continue. Although the job was completed without working on Sundays, RG was still deep in debt. He was able to buy some time with his creditors by committing to improve his financial reporting. The surety company installed an accountant named Mr. Frost to rein in the books. What Mr. Frost found was worse than he had originally expected. Meanwhile, RG had skipped his yearly missions pledge the year before, so he was committed to making good with the Lord. He told Mr. Frost that he had pledged $5,000 to his church for missions. Mr. Frost couldn't believe it. RG was so far behind, even thinking of donating to the Lord was out of the question. Mr. Frost didn't realize who RG was partners in business with. Unbelievably, the business managed to stay afloat, and the missions commitment was paid in full that year. Then his business hit a breakthrough. 4 years, R.G. Latreneau had sold the machinery he had built for himself when he got a little behind financially. Although he still considered himself first and foremost a road construction contractor, the selling of his earth-moving equipment inventions had been a profitable sideline for him. RG's attorney hinted at the idea of solving his financial woes by going full force into the manufacturing business rather than rolling the dice on the ups and downs of big construction jobs. RG then turned his complete focus to the manufacturing of his machinery inventions. After that, his financial woes were a thing of the past. In 1935, with the gigantic profits pouring out of the manufacturing business at the general suggestion of his wife, Evelyn, they transitioned to a 90-10 split with the Lord. 90% went to the Lord and 10% went to RG and Evelyn. Latreneau was fond of remarking, "It's not how much of my money I give to God, but how much of God's money I keep for myself." With the money, they established the Latreneau Foundation to manage the administration of donations. By 1959, after giving $10 million in donations to religious and educational works, the Latreneau Foundation was still worth some $40 million. It is possible to prosper and be upright at the same time. You can be a businessman and a devoted minister at the same time. In fact, God is still looking for businessmen He could trust the secrets of getting wealth that would be totally handed over to him and still leaving the businessman more than enough to live on. The second condition to be met in order to put on the breastplate of righteousness is, do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. Anger is so common, yet so deadly, that I wonder why it is not avoided like a plague. It comes in different guises. Some people are violent and volatile, while others bottle it all up but never let go of it. Anger is one of those human reactions that hurts the angry person more than the person they are angry with. It is one of the first symptoms of the fall. It is a very dangerous animal that must be controlled. This is what God says to Cain about it in Genesis chapter 4, verse 6 through 7. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." If sin is the bullet that does the damage, anger is the gun that fires it. Anger, if allowed to fester, could turn into a root of bitterness, which can really poison a soul and self-destruct a person. An angry person is playing straight into the hands of the devil. Anger and deception are not just sins a man commits. They are what he is. And it will take more than confession and contrition to rid him of them. Paul says, "So I find this law at work, although I want to do good, evil is right there with me. For in my inner being I delight in God's law, but I see another law at work in me, waging war against the law of my mind and making me a prisoner of the law of sin at work within me. What a wretched man I am! Who will rescue me from this body that is subject to death? Thanks be to God who delivers me through Jesus Christ our Lord." Romans chapter 7, verse 21 and 25. Paul concludes, "Thanks be to God who delivers me. He is the hardest deliverance possible, because I am not being delivered from an unclean spirit, which has taken up temporarily residence in me. I am to be delivered from the selfishness which has been resident in my body since I was born and naturally is reluctant to leave."